Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the next live event that we're doing here at Ripple Suicide Prevention, and it's all about shining a light really on mental health and all of the different components that make that up. What we do is we bring in different guests to help us raise awareness of different issues, and tonight I'm very happy to be joined by not only a Ripple advisory board member and ambassador, but also my mate, Ryan. So thank you very much, Ryan, for coming. I'll just get you to introduce yourself in a moment. If you have logged on to any of our lives before, you will be able to see all of the other ones that we've done on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and we'll pop a link on the story so that you can watch this these different shows afterwards as well. Tonight, Ryan and I are going to be talking about financial well-being and mental health and the link that has with suicide. So it might be tough, it might be a sensitive topic for you, and it might be triggering. So please just do make sure that you are taking care of yourself as we're going through this this conversation this evening. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself to everybody and let us know a little bit more about you and where you come from really and how you've got involved in Ripple.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alice. And hi, everyone. LinkedIn Live, where we're at right now. But you forgot to mention a really important link, probably the most important link between us, Alice, and that is the good old Hammers. We are two fans. There's not many others, but we are two fans of West Ham. And that's how we met, really, wasn't it? And the links there. But
yeah, it was.
We have that in common. But a little bit about me. So Ryan, background, professional sport actually. So yeah, we talk a lot about that. More recently, I'm a dad. I've got two young children, 4 and 7, a husband. Financial services for over 10 years. So did my qualifications and became a level 4 qualified financial advisor. Loved many aspects of that. And more recently set up a company called FinWELL, which is a training company that really looks to try and help people understand their knowledge, their understanding, their confidence around all areas of money matters. And more than just being an educational provider to explain what things are and how things work, I'm really passionate about exploring the links between financial well-being, mental health and suicide prevention, which brings us together in many ways, many projects that we're working on. So that's a little bit about me. And more recently, getting involved with the Ripple team, being honoured to join the team and to do whatever I can to progress the conversations and have the conversations around this and help people and save lives, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. And we've already got a comment that's just come through. Irons.
I knew it would be West Ham related. Yeah. I know.
So thank you for that. Come on, you Irons. Hopefully we won't have any Spurs related content coming through on the
no heckling.
No
heckling. No judgment here. Yes, it's a safe environment, right?
If you do have a question or a comment or want to ask something of myself and Ryan, you can do so. Just comment underneath this video and we'll try and get to it at some stage during the evening as well. West Ham related comments very welcome. So Ryan, you mentioned you're an ambassador of Ripple. So tell me about that. What's your role as an ambassador and also in your role as an advisory board member as well, actually, and the importance of that and what we're doing. And I'm happy to jump in here as well and talk a bit more around our expansion at Ripple.
Yeah, the way I see my role, and as I said, I was humbled to be invited to get involved. A few things to make people aware of the links between financial well-being and mental health and suicide prevention, but also to make them aware of what Ripple is and what it does and the story behind it. And I'm on a bit of a mission really for every company that I engage with that are a client of ours at FinWELL, or just any conversation that I have in the street or with friends or whatever, to make sure they're aware of it, so they have the option to get involved or not. And I think it is so important. That's the challenge, I suppose, we've both got. If we could just announce to everyone in the world the great stuff that Ripple is doing, it will help even more people and save even more lives. So I'm just trying to get that message across to everyone I can. Also trying to get, you know, the technology implemented with as many organizations, whether that be schools, colleges, universities, charities, private organizations, whatever. And also raise money as well. You know, it is a charity, and you know that we've added it to the work that we do, and we want to raise as much money as we can to continue to grow and expand the message and ultimately help more people and save more lives. So that's my role, I suppose. On the advisory board team, you know, we've had a few meetings now, haven't we? And that's all about maybe enhancing the technology and further improving the search term, you know, or the search terms that are included that may be linked a bit more to the finances and financial aspects.
That's it. Yeah, exactly that. So, you know, as everybody knows, Ripple is there for anybody who might be conducting searches around, you know, words, questions, statements relating to self-harm or suicide. What we're looking to do with Ryan's help, as an expert in the field of financial well-being, is actually expand the search terms so that if somebody carries out a search that is a crisis level search relating to their finances, such as how can I find loan sharks, or how do I get out of so much debt, Ripple would be presented to that person, but instead actually signpost them to financial wellbeing support. So that's something that we're working with Ryan and a few other people as well. And it's a crucial role for us as we really try to help as many other people as possible. There's a bit of a poignant link, really, between financial well-being and mental health for me personally. When I lost Josh, my brother, to suicide in November of 2020, I went through Josh's devices, his emails, and so on. And I found that he'd actually applied for over 72 payday loans in the week leading up to his death. Absolute desperation levels from him in terms of trying to get money. He was rejected for all of them, and it just spiraled. Financial well-being wasn't the only reason that Josh took his own life, but it was certainly up there. It has to be up there with a reason as to why he did it. So with that in mind, Ryan, can you just give me, in your own words, a bit of a link, really? Why is financial well-being so important to mental health?
Yeah, sure. I just think we can't escape any event in life as we go through life, different stages, that hasn't got a link back to money, you know, that hasn't got an impact on our financial well-being, and then therefore vice versa. There's loads of challenges. We've been in challenging times the last however many years. With what's been going on in the world, it's been really, really tough for a lot of people. We didn't learn these sorts of things at school. That's a whole, we could talk about that for an hour in itself. You know, the fact that education around money and financial well-being isn't
not there,
taught in schools. You know what, encouraging though, and I've got to give a bit of a shout out to Louise Hill at Go Henry, Sharon Davies at Young Enterprise, Leon Ward at My Bank, and others that have been, you know, really fighting for this. And it is something that's happening now. There was a petition, and through them starting that off has reached 10,000 signatures, and now it's progressing. So that's encouraging, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But yeah, we didn't learn the basics at school, and then add to that cost of living crisis, the pandemic, interest rates, inflation. Now, as we're seeing redundancies, you know, we've got to remember businesses are going through the cost of living crisis as well as us as individuals. So that's going to have an impact. and it all just compounds together to make, you know, our lives even harder. And perhaps many of us haven't got the skills or the knowledge or the know-how where to turn or where to get support from, and employers don't either. You know, is it their responsibility? Maybe not, but it's encouraging again to see that they are starting to take this really seriously and understand the links between mental health and financial well-being as well.
It can be a tough topic, actually, can't it, really, for people to talk about if they're finding things difficult with their money, or they're not managing their money appropriately or effectively. That can be really hard to actually talk to people about that. So if, you know, somebody's watching this tonight and they think, God, I'm struggling a bit with my money situation at the moment, what can they do?
Yeah, it's a really good one. And we don't like talking about it. Let's, you know, address that. There's a bigger stigma and taboo around talking about money than there is mental health even. And that's, you know, compliments to the great work around mental health and the fact of, you know, it being talked about more, but we're possibly 5-10 years behind that when it comes to money. And there's the shame around it. You know, I've got personal experience with this, which I don't mind sharing. And
do you think, Ryan, sorry to interrupt you, do you think, we've just mentioned shame there, do you think it's more blokes that have got that element?
I think if you look at the stats, yes. And if we look at, you know, who suffers with this, possibly it's not just men, obviously, but talking from personal experience, I think there's added pressures, possibly, definitely, well, maybe for blokes, but definitely for dads and new young dads. I've seen this, you know, had challenging times with the overwhelm of that. And if your financial health and your financial well-being isn't great, just absolutely amplifies that. But yeah, what could you do? It's really hard. I think if I look back, even if someone had the answer and gave it to me, it doesn't mean that you're going to do it. You know, that you're in a kind of state of being frozen, of inaction, that you can't take action, you can't make decisions. The worse and worse it gets, and then you might fall into a little bit of denial and just kind of, and then looking at coping mechanisms that we all do. But I think the one thing, and so similar to mental health and well-being, the challenges and the solutions are so similar. You know, the fact that there is support out there, there is hope, you know, there are better times, things can be sorted out, it's never too late. And part of our job is, one, making sure people know what support is out there and what is available. And secondly, as important, if not more important, is making people feel empowered that they can take that action and they can reach out. And sometimes we have to hold their hand a little bit and do that with them. Or it might just be a case of making them aware of not just what organizations are out there. Like I'd love to mention Step Change. We partner with Step Change. Fantastic organization. Came close to using them personally myself, but didn't need to in the end. But we need to know how these organizations work and what support is available. It's not good enough to say, go and have a look at Step Change. You need to know what they do, that they're the UK's biggest debt charity, that they are anonymous. You can contact them freely. It doesn't cost you anything. You can speak to someone who can help you have some breathing space from you know, people you owe money to. They can contact providers for you. They can put plans in place and just make it a little bit more manageable. So it's really important that not only do we know what support's out there, but how to access it and what the outcomes have been. How many people have actually done that and come out the other side? We've got to promote these positive stories of people that maybe have gone through challenging times and come out the other side, you know.
Come out the other end, yeah, exactly. We will put links to these organisations that we're mentioning in the conversation tonight in the comments section. So do have a look at them if anybody wants to. There's some fantastic organisations. Step Change, brilliant. Obviously FinWELL, we've got to mention as well. You know, brilliant training and initiative there to try and upskill yourself really and understand what you can do to help your own situation. But I mean, this isn't just a few people here that are worried about this. 1 in 4 adults are now deeply concerned about their financial situation. That's a lot of people. So the chances are, you know, a large percentage of people that are watching this tonight will be going through something similar. So yeah, really important that that we're getting them the support that you need really at the right time.
And that's 1 in 4, Alice, that are coming forward to admit that, you know, whether it's anonymously or not, in whatever survey has been done, that's 1 in 4 that are happy to come forward and say that. And I think the number's bigger, you know, than that.
Yeah, no, exactly that. You mentioned in your introduction that you were a sports person.
Once upon a time, Alice, once upon a time.
You're a footballer. You were a footballer, and you were a footballer for the European champions. So
the massive West Ham, Alice,
the massive West Ham. For those of you who don't know that, so if you're happy to share, Ryan, tell me what the financial challenges were like as a footballer when you were playing for the academy. What was the kind of peer pressures? What were the challenges that you faced during that time? And how did you manage your finances during that period? And how have it changed?
Yeah. So I think we need to clarify, you know, if you was to Google me, you won't find me. Probably you might find a few old pictures, but I wasn't a footballer in the sense of, you know, a massive career or playing for England or earning the big bucks that maybe they do now. I didn't even play for the first team for West Ham, but I did sort of progress from the age of 9 to the age of 20 and went right the way through and played with some really good players that did go on and play for England, do really well. And obviously I taught them everything they know, but I don't know. It's really, if I look back, this is something I've learned, that financial well-being affects everyone. You can't escape it. Money, our relationships with money affect all of us in different ways. And we talked a little bit there just before around debt and some of the challenges when money's hard to come by and the links to mental health. But you know what? Having money or earning good money or having money in the bank doesn't mean that everything's rosy. There's other pressures that come with that. Unless you've got a good relationship with money and understand how it works and understand how to manage it, and also look back at possibly even your childhood. And I don't want to get too deep on the psychological side of this, but it really does have an impact. You're not gonna genuinely be happy, to be honest. And I know some people might think, oh, well, I'd like that problem, or I'd like to give that a go at least and have that problem. And I'm not saying I had loads of money at all, but I had access to money more than possibly some of my friends at a very early age. I was okay. I had a dad who was a financial advisor, so you know that helped, and was relatively good and sensible. But I've learned that it's not just those that are struggling that need to focus on their financial well-being, and you know, getting into debt and spending habits and not having financial resilience, and all of that stuff can come no matter what you're earning, I suppose. So it's not like a sub story for footballers, but it's just a point I think to be made that it affects us in all different ways, and your relationship with money is what's to focus on, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned childhood there, and it reminded me of a memory that I've got actually when I was a child. So, well, I say child, I just got a job 16 as a checkout assistant at a supermarket locally to me in my village. And my dad set me up with what he calls a budget book. And it was writing down in an A5 book every week, what wages have you got coming in, putting money aside for certain things like friends' birthdays, like petrol, driving lessons, all those kinds of things. the budget book still exists in his
You've still got the
household.
budget book.
Yeah, it
I hope it's
still
a new
exists.
version. It's a new version of the budget book, right? Or that's...
Yeah. I mean, in a world where we're full of technology and artificial intelligence and all of that kind of stuff, the budget book still exists in my dad's house. But look, it's put him in good stead, and it certainly set me up quite nicely as well, to know the value and putting things aside and so on. But it's not like that for everybody. And Josh was raised with the budget book, and it didn't work out that way for him.
Yeah.
I didn't know Josh was finding things tough with his finances until after he'd taken his life. So I guess my next question to you, Ryan, is how can you spot somebody that you think might need support with their finances? I know that's really a tough question because it varies, but are there any signs?
Yeah, and just going back to your budget book, brilliant. We've learned there is no one size fits all. You've got to find what works for you. And your example, very sad that it is that it kind of worked for you. I know that wasn't the only reason, but that it didn't work that well for Josh. And you've got to find what does work. And there's a whole multitude of ways to get on top of your money, whether it be, as someone put in the comments, good old pen and paper, or apps or spreadsheets. I'm a bit of a spreadsheet man, so I like my spreadsheets, but whatever works for you. But yeah, going back to your question, spotting the signs, blimey, really, really hard, because we are brilliant at wearing masks. I was brilliant at wearing a mask and everyone thinking everything was fine, and really behind the scenes, you're really, really struggling. So it is hard, but again, the similarities between the challenges around mental health and well-being and financial are really, really similar. And I suppose the big thing we train on this and work with people on this is to look for differences in behaviour. No one thing in isolation is going to mean that someone's struggling. You might, approach that and you'll be completely barking up the wrong tree, but differences in behaviour, little, nuanced changes perhaps. And that can be becoming more withdrawn and not socializing as much, or not being as involved. Or it could be the opposite, where there could be more extravagant purchases, and trying to prove something maybe, which could be a sign of, increasing debt or reliance on credit or borrowing money to kind of keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. There's loads of ways at the workplace that could be indicators, asking for, multiple shifts, again, that maybe is out of character a little bit, possibly. Overtime, asking for wage advances or loans, which we see quite a lot with some of the companies we work with. Looking different, just being more disheveled, looking tired because perhaps they've been up all night worrying or stressed. A whole range of things to try and look out for. But
yeah,
I suppose it's the tip I would suggest is again similar to mental health and well-being, but to ask that question and ask it again and ask it a second time and a third time, and not just ask the question, but ask it effectively when the time is right as well, and when you've got a bit of privacy, and then maybe you can get to some of the root causes of what might be causing the additional stress or anxiety or whatever it might be.
And it's similar, isn't it, to the topic of suicide, right? Nobody wants to raise that as a topic, but it's so important to do that. And, there's that myth out there that we've all heard, which is if you talk to somebody about suicide, you're going to put the idea in their head. Actually, the reality is that if you believe somebody is finding things really difficult and experiencing suicidal thoughts, the best thing you can do actually is to ask them, is suicide something that you've been having thoughts about? And it then allows that person to open up and actually talk about how they're feeling. And quite often they're really relieved, actually. And it's similar to your finances, right? If there are any signs that you think, oh, that's something not quite right there, the best thing to do is to ask. But as you said, somewhere private, be empathetic, and subtle in your approach. But I think asking the question is so important.
Yeah, and I think having someone that has asked a question that you can then trust and share that with is the first step to massively lightening the load, and then having that person to almost hold your hand through the process a little bit to help you feel more confident in taking action, because it's not easy. You don't just flick a switch and then, right, I'm going to take action and sort this all out. It takes time.
No, it's a process. It's a process that takes time. You've touched on the fact, Ryan, that you've had lived experience of finding things tough with finances and stuff. Tell me now how that's led to you founding FinWELL, and what actually is FinWELL for people that are watching this.
I think for lots of us that work in the well-being space, if we want to call it that, and whether it's mental well-being or physical or financial, we are drawing on personal experience. I think that's probably what drives me with FinWELL. We've all had challenging times, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, and I had my own challenging times, which I'm happy to share. But it led me to not just want to educate people and help people around the basics that we didn't learn at school and we talked about, but like I said at the start of this conversation, really start to focus on and understand the links that it has, the intrinsic links between our money and our finances and our mental health, and then suicide prevention as well. For me, experiencing financial anxiety, I would say, and still experiencing that once you've kind of gone through it, you still have the triggers, dark times, but then getting through that to a certain degree. It's not completely great, but things are a lot better, and that's driven me to create FinWELL, which ultimately is a training company to help people understand what financial well-being is for them personally, to improve, to measure where they're at. Really important that we can measure this stuff and reflect on what's good and what's not, and where we need to work on possibly, and then take steps and feel empowered to take action to improve your knowledge, your understanding, your confidence around the areas that you need to focus on. And I think that's the biggest challenge we had as a company, was that this is so vast. When we went into the companies to start with, whether they had 10 employees or 10,000, everyone's at a different stage, all different ages, different income levels, different job roles, different family situations, different stages of life, all got different needs, and we've needed to try and develop different ways to meet them where they're at and personalize the support that's available. So that's what FinWELL does. We do various things. We create content to try and inspire people or to educate people. We gather data for companies to try and identify where their people are at or what they need. We do group workshops online or in person. We do one-to-one support, leadership training, redundancy support. We really just listen to all the companies we've worked with in the last, say, 2 years and ask them what they need. Quite simple, and then try to do it. And we'll continue to do that, I suppose.
You're helping huge amounts of people, Ryan, and I only wish, to be honest, that my brother had found you and the team 3.5 years ago, because I honestly think it might have made a difference, to be honest. So thank you for all of the work that you do. We're doing some work together coming up. We've got first ever Financial Wellbeing Month, which is happening in April, doing it in partnership with Mental Health First Aid England as well. Ripple are involved in that. tell us a bit more about what that month entails and where we can get some more information on that month, because it's important and it's a great opportunity for people to learn a bit more about money, right?
Yeah. I think Justine is on watching this and she'll laugh, because I had an idea, like I do. Some are great, some are rubbish. And I just thought, I think I'd heard about Financial Wellness Month, which is in America. And I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with awareness days and weeks. I think they're fantastic to raise awareness, but my kind of bugbear is that we need to keep that conversation going, right? It's not
it's not just a day, is it? Yeah, it's not just a day. Yeah.
So I thought, well, Financial Wellbeing Month, America do things well. We can do it just as well. So bought the domains and sorted all that out, and then asked the team, oh, that'd be a good idea. And I think Justine virtually punched me through the Zoom session, because it was just another thing we was going to have to deal with, and she was going to have to do. But the serious side of it was that I didn't want it to become another awareness day that replicates something else, or that crosses over or duplicates some of the great work that's being done.
Yeah.
So rather than it being an education or educational, it still is, but the main crux of it is that it raises awareness and looks at the links, like we've talked about, between financial well-being, mental health, and suicide prevention. That is the main emphasis of it. So obviously, working with you, we wanted there to be the charity angle, and that any money that was raised could go to good causes. Getting Mental Health First Aid England involved was just unbelievable. Having the chat with Simon Blake, the CEO there, and he had experience with doing similar things with kind of Anti-Bullying Week and great work that he's done. So got where I was coming from, and we'll see how it goes. He told me, quite funnily, one tip to start small and not use up all your ideas. And I couldn't listen to that. We've gone crazy with it. We've put on as many events as we could. Our whole team are involved doing various events, looking at loads of different life stages and topics and themes that link back to our finances and mental health. We've got that going on.
And by life stages, Ryan, you're talking about things like getting on the property ladder, making sure that you're saving for your pension, all of those kinds of things, right?
Well, you know what? That's how we started. So we tried to break life's financial journey, if you will, down into 5 key areas. So that would be basic money management and money mindset, the property ladder. So getting on, moving up, moving down, getting off the property ladder, protecting what's important, protecting your income, your family, your future, investing for your future, and looking at that, and then modern retirement planning. So they were the kind of the 5 key ones. But as we progressed and done more and more work with companies, we've now been introduced to a whole host of other life stages or life events that may or may not happen that have a huge impact. So, we talk about menopause and money, the massive impact that has. We've got a specialist, Tracy, who's got lived experience with that and can share that and try and help people. We've got Sam Langford, who's a specialist within bereavement and trauma and grief and loss, and looking at the real impact that has on our finances and vice versa. Even more recently with Sharon Livermore, who's brilliant, looks at kind of financial control and domestic abuse and economic abuse. There's so many different stages of life, some that may or may not happen to you, but many that will be inevitable that you can't really get through without experiencing, and the huge impact that has. So we're focusing on all of those against Simon's advice. We're just going to go for it and do as much as we can and try and build on it in future years.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's amazing that Simon and his team have got on board from MHFA England as well. Fantastic. We've been chatting away for over half an hour. We knew this would happen.
Is anyone still there? Is everyone still there out there on YouTube?
We haven't even touched on West Ham yet. So before I close, I've got one really important question to ask you, which is, Moyes in or Moyes out?
Oh, blimey. Well, I saw on my Instagram or whatever one it was, there was a picture of just another manager, shall we say, and whether or not that's a good idea. I'd say Moyes in. I'm just quite grateful. I'm a grateful West Ham supporter that, you know,
because there's so many bad times. We've actually,
well,
in the grand scheme of things, we're having a pretty good time at the moment, despite the results.
How can we moan? I mean, you know, for me, this, you know, having the results that we've had against other football teams, other London teams, I'd take that, you know, all day over who's managing us and are we playing the prettiest football? Yeah, we want to play good football and West Ham deserve that, but I'm quite grateful and happy where we're at the moment. So it could be a lot worse. The grass is always greener, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. And we'll get a date in to go to another game together soon, Ryan, hopefully. Look, thank you so much for doing this with us this evening, for coming on, for being open, for going through some support that people can get for their finances. There is a huge link between financial well-being and mental health. People with problem debt are 3 times more likely to have had suicidal thoughts than anybody else, right? So there's a massive link here. We thank you very much for all of the work that you do. Grateful to be partnering with you on all of your ideas and things that you've got coming up, including Financial Wellbeing Month. So a very quick overview just to close around what Ripple is, for those of you who are listening that don't know. So Ripple is a piece of technology. It can be downloaded in 2 ways, either as a browser extension, or we can put Ripple on Wi-Fi networks as well. What that means is once downloaded, either as a browser extension or put on that Wi-Fi network, it means that if somebody was to go online and search for something harmful to do with self-harm or suicide, then Ripple would intervene, interrupt that search, and instead signpost that person to mental health support services. As we mentioned earlier in this conversation, we are also expanding this out to reach financial wellbeing support as well for people who might be struggling with their money. Thank you very much to all of you who have watched. I'm very glad that we didn't have any Spurs comments on the feed, so thank you very much for that. If you are a secret Tottenham fan, it's not an easy topic to discuss, you know, suicide and financial well-being. So please do make sure that you are looking after yourself. We do have some comments in the chat as well about step change, and we'll put a link to FinWELL on there as well. So if you need any additional support, please do reach out to them. So all that's left for me to say, thank you very much again, Ryan. Appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for watching. Cheers.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Alice. Thanks all, and have a nice evening. Do I do my freeze? Am I still on? Probably am. Better go.